The wine glass trembled in my hand as Lydia's laughter echoed through our dining room like broken crystal. I should have seen it coming. The way her friends exchanged those knowing glances, the smirks that followed me wherever I went in my own home. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened that night. "Silas, darling, tell everyone about your latest project," Lydia called out from across the table, her voice dripping with mock enthusiasm. She was radiant in her designer dress, the one I'd paid for with my restoration work earnings. "He's been dusting off some moldy painting for weeks now." The table erupted in polite chuckles. Bianca, Lydia's oldest friend and chief enabler, raised her perfectly manicured eyebrow. "Oh, how fascinating! Another late artist's masterpiece?" "It's a 17th century Italian piece," I began, trying to maintain some dignity. "The varnish layers have—" "Varnish layers," Marnie interrupted, nearly spilling her third glass of wine. She was already filming everything on her phone, as usual. "God, Silas, you make it sound so exciting." Roman Cale, the so-called producer who'd somehow weaseled his way into our social circle, leaned back in his chair with that insufferable smirk. "You know, in my business, we call that polishing a turd." The laughter was louder this time, meaner. I watched my wife's face, waiting for her to defend me, to tell her friends to back off. Instead, she was staring at her phone, thumbs moving rapidly across the screen. "Who are you texting?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Just work stuff," she said, without looking up. "The Milan Fashion Week posts are getting incredible engagement." Bianca leaned over to peek at Lydia's screen. "Ooh, is that the producer from the networking event?" My stomach dropped. Roman shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and I caught the brief glance he exchanged with my wife. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but I wasn't ready to believe it yet. "You know what we should do?" Marnie announced, setting down her wine glass with theatrical flair. "Let's play a drinking game. Take a shot every time Silas mentions restoration or authenticity or any of his dusty old words." "That's brilliant!" Bianca clapped her hands together. "We'll be wasted in 10 minutes. "I think we already are," Roman muttered, but he was grinning. I forced a smile. "Very funny. Maybe I should stick to subjects you can understand, like reality TV or Instagram filters." The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Lydia finally looked up from her phone, her eyes flashing with warning. "Silas, don't be rude to our guests." "Our guests?" I wasn't aware I was hosting a roast. "Oh, come on." Bianca waved her hand dismissively. "We're just having fun. You're so serious all the time. It's like living with a museum curator." "At least museum curators have job security," Marnie added, causing another round of laughter. I excused myself to the kitchen, ostensibly to check on dessert, but really to collect myself. The kitchen was my sanctuary, the one room in the house that still felt like mine. As I stood there, trying to process the evening's humiliations, I noticed Lydia's iPad charging on the counter. The screen was still lit up, showing her messages. I shouldn't have looked. I knew it was wrong, but something compelled me to glance at the notification that had just popped up. "Can't wait for tonight to be over. This charade is exhausting. R. Roman." I tapped the message thread, and my world collapsed. The conversation went back months. Intimate messages, photos I didn't want to see, plans for trips I'd never heard about. But it was the group chat that really destroyed me. The exit strategy. That's what they called it. Lydia, Bianca, Marnie, and 2 other friends I'd thought cared about me. Phase 1 complete. S is completely isolated from his own friends now. Phase 2. Document everything that makes him look controlling or abusive. Phase 3. Move out while he's at the gallery opening next month. The LLC paperwork is almost ready. Once I transfer the blog assets, I'll be free and clear. I scrolled through weeks of messages, each one a knife twist. They'd been planning this for months, systematically destroying my friendships, my reputation, my life. And I'd been completely oblivious. Silas is such a pushover. He actually thanked me for helping him see how toxic his college friends were. LOL, he has no idea about Roman. Poor little art nerd. Don't feel bad, Lydia. He's just a placeholder until you figure out what you really want. My hands were shaking as I read message after message detailing their manipulation, their lies, their complete contempt for me. They'd turned my own friends against me with carefully crafted stories about my controlling behavior and emotional abuse. Friends I'd known since college had stopped calling, stopped inviting me out, all because of their poisonous whispers. I heard Lydia's voice from the dining room, louder now, more animated. You know what? I have something to say. I slipped the iPad into my jacket pocket and returned to the dining room. Lydia was standing, wine glass raised, her cheeks flushed with alcohol and excitement. I want to make a toast, she announced, to the people who really matter in life, the ones who stick by you through everything. She looked around the table at her friends, her co-conspirators, her fellow architects of my destruction. Husbands come and go, she declared with a brilliant smile, but friends are forever. The table erupted in cheers and applause. Bianca actually stood up to clink glasses. Roman raised his wine with a knowing smirk. Marnie captured it all on video, probably for her Instagram story. I sat there in complete silence, watching the woman I'd loved for 6 years celebrate my impending destruction with the people who'd helped her plan it. The betrayal was so complete, so thorough, that I felt something break inside me. Not my heart. That was already gone. Something deeper. Something that had kept me human. Silas? Lydia was looking at me expectantly. Aren't you going to toast with us? I stood up slowly, deliberately. I reached into my jacket and pulled out her iPad, setting it gently on the table in front of her. Then I slipped off my wedding ring and placed it next to the device. Congratulations on your exit strategy, I said quietly. I hope it works out better than you planned. The color drained from Lydia's face. Bianca's mouth fell open. Roman actually dropped his wine glass. I walked to the front door without another word. Behind me, I could hear Lydia frantically trying to unlock her iPad, her voice rising in panic. Silas, wait, let me explain. But I was already gone. I spent that night in my workshop, surrounded by the tools of my trade and the weight of my new reality. The basement had always been my refuge, filled with easels, chemical baths, and centuries-old artwork waiting for resurrection. Now, it felt like a war room. Jasper found me there the next morning, hunched over my laptop with red eyes and a half-empty bottle of bourbon. Jesus, boss, you look like hell, he said, setting down 2 cups of coffee. Jasper had been my assistant for 3 years, ever since he'd gotten out of prison for a white-collar scheme that had gone sideways. He was the only person in my life who understood what it meant to be underestimated. Read this, I said, sliding the iPad across my workbench. Jasper whistled low as he scrolled through the messages. Your wife's a piece of work, and her friends, man, they really had it out for you. 6 years, I said, taking a long sip of coffee that tasted like ashes. 6 years of marriage, and I was just a placeholder. So what are you going to do about it? That was the question, wasn't it? The old Silas would have tried to talk it out, would have suggested counseling, would have begged for another chance. But the old Silas was gone, ruined by a group chat and a toast to his irrelevance. I'm going to restore something, I said finally. What's that? The natural order of things. Jasper grinned, and I remembered why I'd hired an ex-con. I'm listening. I opened my laptop and pulled up the LLC paperwork I'd filed 2 years ago when Lydia had started making serious money from her blog. She'd wanted protection from liability, she'd said, professional credibility. I'd been happy to help, setting up Morton Media LLC with myself as the primary member and Lydia as an employee. At the time, it had seemed like the responsible thing to do. Now, it was going to be her destruction. Every sponsorship contract, every brand partnership, every affiliate agreement, they're all technically with my company, I explained to Jasper. She's been operating as an employee this entire time, and employees can be fired. Employees can be fired, I confirmed, but it's better than that. Look at these contracts. I pulled up the sponsorship agreements with the luxury brands that had made Lydia's lifestyle possible. Chanel, Gucci, Tiffany, and Co. Companies that paid her thousands of dollars per post to showcase their products to her 200,000 followers. Every single one of these contracts has a morality clause, I said, pointing to the fine print. And look at this. She's been accepting gifts without proper disclosure. That's an FTC violation. Jasper leaned back in his chair. You're going to destroy her career. I'm going to let her destroy her own career. I'm just going to make sure the right people know about it. I spent the next hour crafting emails to every brand partner, every sponsor, every company that had a business relationship with Lydia Morton. Professional, factual, devastating. Dear brand manager, I wrote, I am writing to inform you of serious compliance issues regarding your partnership with Morton Media LLC. Our employee, Lydia Morton, has been accepting undisclosed gifts and compensation in violation of FTC guidelines and the morality clauses in your agreements. Additionally, we have discovered that she has been misrepresenting the nature of our business relationship to partners and clients. Effective immediately, we are terminating all existing agreements and requesting that you cease any promotional activities involving Ms. Morton. Please find attached documentation supporting these claims. I attached screenshots of the group chat, focusing on the messages where Lydia bragged about the free stuff she got from brands and how easy it was to hide the payments from the IRS. That's cold, boss, Jasper said, reading over my shoulder. That's business. The emails went out at 9 a.m. sharp, just as Lydia would be starting her morning routine of posting perfectly curated content to her stories. I imagined her in our bedroom, former bedroom, sipping her overpriced matcha latte and planning her day of manufactured authenticity. My phone started ringing within the hour. Silas, what the hell did you do? Lydia's voice was shrill, panicked. Chanel just called and terminated my contract. They're demanding I return the jewelry from last month's shoot. I filed some paperwork, I said calmly. Cleaned up some compliance issues. Compliance issues? Silas, this is my career. No, Lydia, this was your job, and you're fired. I hung up and immediately blocked her number. Then I called my lawyer. Richard, it's Silas Morton. I need you to file dissolution papers for Morton Media LLC. Yes, today. And I need you to prepare a personal divorce filing. No, I don't want mediation. I want everything. By noon, the dominoes were falling faster than I could track them. Gucci, Tiffany, Hermes, one by one, the luxury brands that had funded Lydia's lifestyle were cutting ties and demanding restitution. Her Instagram comments were filling up with confused followers asking why she was deleting posts and canceling partnerships. But the real masterpiece was yet to come. I drove to the climate-controlled storage facility across town, where I'd been keeping the overflow from my personal art collection. Paintings, sculptures, antiques, pieces I'd acquired over the years through my restoration work, either as payment or through estate sales. Lydia had always dismissed them as dusty old junk, never realizing their true value. I need to move everything to the vault, I told the facility manager. All of it, today. The vault was a high-security storage facility I'd researched months ago for a client's collection. Temperature-controlled, humidity-regulated, accessible only with biometric scanning and a passcode only I knew. As the movers loaded painting after painting into the truck, I calculated the value in my head. Conservative estimates put the collection at just over $2 million. Lydia had no idea what she'd been living with all these years. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Bianca. You need to stop this crazy revenge thing and talk to Lydia like an adult. I smiled and typed back, Tell Lydia I said the restoration is complete. The collection has been withdrawn. Then I blocked that number too. The Anchor Tavern had been my refuge during the dark months when Lydia's friends had systematically poisoned my social circle. It was one of those authentic dive bars that survived in our gentrified neighborhood by serving strong drinks and minding its own business. Tonight, it was about to become the scene of my vindication. I'd been nursing a whiskey for an hour when Bianca and Marnie walked in, their faces grim with purpose. They spotted me immediately, probably because I was the only person in the place wearing a button-down shirt instead of flannel. "We need to talk," Bianca announced, sliding into the booth across from me without invitation. Marnie sat beside her, already filming on her phone. "Put that away," I said quietly. "No, I'm documenting this," Marnie replied. "Someone needs to witness what you're doing to Lydia." I signaled the bartender, a grizzled ex-Marine named Tommy, who'd heard more confessions than a priest. "Tommy, could you come over here for a second?" He ambled over, wiping his hands on a bar towel. "What's up, Silas?" "These ladies want to film in your establishment. I wanted to make sure you were okay with that." Tommy's expression darkened. "No filming in my bar. House rule." He looked pointedly at Marnie. "Put it away or get out." Marnie reluctantly lowered her phone, but I could see her hand moving, probably still recording audio. "Now then," I said, taking a sip of whiskey. "What can I do for you ladies?" "You can stop destroying Lydia's life," Bianca said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "What you're doing is vindictive and cruel." "What I'm doing is correcting some oversights in our business relationship," I replied. "Lydia was operating under my LLC without proper compliance. I had a fiduciary duty to address that." "Cut the corporate speak," Marnie snapped. "You're trying to ruin her because you found out about Roman." "Ah, Roman." I set down my glass and leaned back. "The producer. Tell me, what exactly does he produce? Because I've been looking into his background and it's fascinating." The color drained from Bianca's face. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Roman Cale isn't a producer. He's a marketing consultant for a mid-level PR firm. And he's married. Has been for 8 years. His wife Sarah is lovely, by the way. We had a very interesting conversation this afternoon." Marnie's mouth fell open. "You didn't." "I did. Turns out Sarah had no idea about Roman's extracurricular activities. She was particularly interested in the photos Lydia posted from their weekend in the Hamptons. You know, the ones tagged as a work retreat." "You bastard," Bianca hissed. "You're destroying multiple people's lives." "I'm restoring the truth," I corrected. "Something I'm quite good at, professionally speaking." Tommy had been listening from behind the bar, and I saw him pull out his phone. Within minutes, half the regulars in the place were whispering and glancing in our direction. In a neighborhood like ours, gossip traveled faster than wildfire. "Look," Marnie said, trying a different approach. "We know you're hurt. We know you feel betrayed. But this scorched earth thing isn't going to make you feel better." "You're right," I said, surprising them both. "It's not about feeling better. It's about justice." I pulled out my own phone and opened the screenshots I'd prepared. "Would you like to know what really hurts? It's not the affair. It's not even the divorce planning. It's this." I showed them the messages where they'd systematically destroyed my friendships, spreading lies about my character to people I'd known for years. "Remember Dave from college? My best man? You told him I'd been emotionally abusing Lydia and that she was afraid to leave me. He hasn't spoken to me in 6 months." Bianca shifted uncomfortably. "We were trying to protect her." "Protect her from what? From a husband who worked 60-hour weeks to pay for her lifestyle? From someone who supported her dreams even when they made no financial sense? From a man who loved her enough to put her name on everything he owned?" "You were controlling," Marnie said weakly. "You isolated her from opportunities." "I isolated her?" I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. "I encouraged her to start the blog. I paid for the professional photography. I set up the business structure that made her success possible, and you convinced her that was control." Tommy had moved closer, pretending to wipe down tables but clearly listening. A few other patrons had stopped their conversations entirely. "Here's what really happened," I continued, my voice carrying in the suddenly quiet bar. "You saw that Lydia was happy, and you couldn't stand it. Bianca, you've been divorced twice. Marnie, you haven't had a relationship last longer than 6 months. You needed Lydia to be as miserable as you are." "That's not true," Bianca protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it? Look at your group chat. Really look at it. How much of it is about Lydia's happiness, and how much is about destroying mine?" I stood up and threw a 20 on the table. "You want to know the difference between you and me? When I destroy something, I do it to restore something better. When you destroy something, it's just because you can't create anything yourself." I started to walk away, then turned back. "Oh, and Marnie, you might want to check your Instagram. I think you accidentally posted something you didn't mean to." Her face went white as she frantically opened her app. Sure enough, the video she'd taken of Lydia's meltdown at the art gala was public, complete with her drunken commentary about fake friends and social climbing. As I walked out of the bar, I could hear Bianca and Marnie arguing in heated whispers. Behind the bar, Tommy was already on his phone, probably calling his wife with the neighborhood's juiciest gossip in months. The night air felt clean and cold against my face. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Roman's lakeside estate was exactly what I'd expected. All glass and steel and desperate attempts at sophistication. The kind of place that screamed, "I have money," to anyone within a 50-mile radius. It was perfect for what I had planned. I'd received his text that morning. "We need to talk. Meet me at the lake house. Come alone." The implied threat was laughable. Roman Kale, marketing consultant extraordinaire, thought he could intimidate me into silence. He had no idea what he was dealing with. Jasper had wanted to come with me, but I'd insisted on handling this myself. Some things required a personal touch. I found Roman on the deck overlooking the water, nursing what looked like his third scotch of the evening. He was trying to project confidence, but I could see the cracks. His marriage was over, his job was in jeopardy, and his affair with my wife had become the talk of the town. "Silas," he said without turning around, "I was wondering when you'd show up." "Roman." I joined him at the railing, admiring the view. "Nice place. I'm surprised you can still afford it." His jaw tightened. "Let's cut to the chase. What's it going to take for you to back off?" "Back off from what?" "Don't play dumb. You've destroyed Lydia's career, ended my marriage, and turned the entire neighborhood against us. What do you want?" I considered his question seriously. "I want you to understand something, Roman. This isn't about money or revenge or even justice. This is about consequences." "Consequences?" "You and Lydia thought you were so clever. The secret affair, the exit strategy, the systematic destruction of my reputation. You thought I was just some pathetic cuckold who'd roll over and take it." I turned to face him fully. "But here's what you didn't understand. I'm very good at restoration. And sometimes, before you can restore something, you have to strip away all the layers of damage." Roman's hand tightened on his glass. "You're talking like a crazy person." "Am I? Let's review what's happened, shall we? Lydia's lost her sponsorships because she was violating FTC regulations, regulations that exist for good reasons. Your wife left you because she discovered you were cheating, something she had every right to know. Your employer is reviewing your conduct because you've been using company resources for personal affairs. These aren't vindictive attacks, Roman. These are natural consequences. You orchestrated all of it. I simply provided information to interested parties. What they chose to do with that information was entirely up to them." Roman set down his glass and stepped closer. He was bigger than me, broader through the shoulders, and he was trying to use that to his advantage. "Here's what's going to happen," he said, his voice dropping to what he probably thought was a menacing whisper. You're going to call off your little revenge campaign. You're going to give Lydia a fair divorce settlement. And you're going to stay out of our lives. Or what? Or I'll make you. I laughed, and the sound seemed to echo off the water. Roman, do you know what I do for a living? I mean, really do? He frowned, clearly not expecting the question. I take things that are damaged, sometimes beyond recognition, and I figure out what they used to be. Then I painstakingly remove every layer of corruption, every bit of damage, until the original is revealed. It requires patience, precision, and an intimate understanding of how things break down. I stepped closer to him, close enough that he had to look down to meet my eyes. You broke down the moment you decided to sleep with another man's wife. Lydia broke down when she chose deception over honesty. Your marriage, her career, your reputation, they were all damaged goods long before I got involved. You son of a… Roman's fist was already in motion when Jasper appeared from the shadows of the house, moving with the fluid grace of someone who'd learned to fight in places where losing meant more than just a bruised ego. I wouldn't, Jasper said quietly, catching Roman's wrist in a grip that made the bigger man wince. The boss doesn't like violence. Makes him cranky. I told you to stay in the car, I said mildly. You did. But then I saw Ethan sneaking around the side of the house with what looked like a tire iron, and I figured you might need backup. Ethan, Roman's IT friend and fellow conspirator, emerged from the shadows looking sheepish and defeated. Jasper had zip-tied his hands behind his back and relieved him of his improvised weapon. A tire iron, Roman? Really? I shook my head in disappointment. I thought we were going to have a civilized conversation. This is kidnapping, Roman sputtered, cradling his wrist. I'll call the police. With what phone? Jasper held up 2 smartphones. Ethan was carrying both of them, probably planning to record whatever happened here tonight. I walked over to the outdoor bar and poured myself a glass of Roman's expensive scotch. Here's what's actually going to happen. You're going to sit down, shut up, and listen while I explain exactly how much trouble you're in. Roman looked like he wanted to argue, but Jasper's presence seemed to have dampened his enthusiasm for confrontation. First, I began, settling into one of the deck chairs. Let's talk about the embezzlement. Roman's face went white. What embezzlement? The company credit card charges for your romantic weekends with Lydia. The client entertainment budget that somehow funded your affair. The conference in Miami that you attended with my wife instead of the actual client you claimed to be meeting. I pulled out a folder of documents I'd prepared. It's amazing what you can discover when you start looking into someone's background. Your employer was very interested to learn about your creative expense reporting. That's not embezzlement. Those were legitimate business expenses. Were they? Because according to your company's HR department, using corporate funds for personal relationships is grounds for immediate termination and possible criminal charges. Ethan was looking back and forth between us like a spectator at a tennis match. Even zip-tied and defeated, he seemed fascinated by the proceedings. Second, I continued, let's discuss the fraud charges. What fraud charges? The ones that will be filed when your wife's divorce attorney discovers that you've been hiding assets in offshore accounts. Yes, Roman. I know about the Cayman Islands investments. Your financial advisor was very chatty when I posed as a potential client. Roman slumped into a chair, the fight going out of him. What do you want? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to realize that when you destroy someone's life, they might just return the favor. And most importantly, I want you to stay away from my wife. Your ex-wife, he corrected weakly. Not yet. The divorce isn't final. And until it is, Lydia is still my responsibility. I finished my scotch and stood up. Jasper, I think we're done here. What about Tweedledee? Jasper nodded toward Ethan. Cut him loose. He's learned his lesson. As Jasper freed Ethan, I walked over to Roman one last time. You know what the beautiful thing about restoration is? I asked. When it's done right, you can't even tell the piece was ever damaged. It's like the harm never happened. I leaned down so only he could hear my next words. But sometimes, Roman, the damage is too extensive. Sometimes the only option is to let the piece crumble into dust. I straightened up and smiled. Enjoy the rest of your evening, gentlemen. I have a feeling it's going to be one to remember. As Jasper and I walked back to the car, I could hear Roman frantically searching for a phone to call his lawyer. It was too late for that, but I admired his optimism. "Boss," Jasper said as we drove away, "remind me never to get on your bad side." "Don't worry," I replied, watching the lake house disappear in the rear-view mirror. "You're not married to me." The annual Riverside Arts Festival had always been Lydia's favorite event. She loved the attention, the networking opportunities, the chance to be seen and photographed by the local society pages. This year, she was about to get more attention than she'd ever bargained for. I arrived early to set up my booth, a legitimate vendor space I'd purchased months ago to showcase some of my restoration work. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd be displaying genuine art, while my wife's life fell apart around carefully constructed lies. Jasper was helping me arrange the pieces when Mrs. Evers, my elderly neighbor and the unofficial gossip coordinator for our entire zip code, approached with her usual conspiratorial whisper. "Silas, dear, I hope you don't mind me saying, but the whole neighborhood is talking about what's been happening with you and Lydia." "Is that so?" "Oh, yes. And I have to tell you, most people are on your side. We all saw how those friends of hers treated you. And that Roman character?" She shook her head disapprovingly. "His poor wife has been staying with her sister since the truth came out." I arranged a restored Civil War-era portrait on its easel, making sure the lighting caught the details I'd spent months perfecting. Truth has a way of surfacing, doesn't it? Indeed it does. "Oh, and dear, Lydia's been telling people she's going to make some kind of public statement today, something about setting the record straight." I smiled. How thoughtful of her to let everyone know. Mrs. Evers patted my arm and shuffled off to spread the news to anyone who hadn't already heard. Within an hour, half the festival was buzzing with anticipation for whatever drama was about to unfold. Lydia arrived at noon, flanked by what remained of her social circle. The group had shrunk considerably. Bianca was notably absent, having apparently decided that loyalty only extended so far when your own reputation was at stake. Marnie was there, phone in hand as always, but she looked nervous and kept glancing around like she expected an ambush. My wife looked terrible. The stress of the past weeks had taken its toll, and no amount of expensive makeup could hide the dark circles under her eyes or the desperate edge to her smile. She was wearing a designer dress I'd never seen before, probably one of her last purchases before the sponsorship money dried up. She spotted me immediately and marched over with the determination of someone who'd rehearsed this confrontation multiple times. "Silas," she said loudly, drawing the attention of everyone within earshot. "We need to talk." "Hello, Lydia. You look well." "Don't." Her voice cracked slightly. "Don't pretend like everything is normal. You've destroyed my life." A crowd was gathering, drawn by the promise of public drama. I could see phones being raised, social media vultures ready to document whatever happened next. "I've destroyed your life?" I kept my voice calm, reasonable. "How exactly have I done that?" "You sabotaged my business relationships. You turned my friends against me. You're trying to take everything in the divorce." "I reported FTC violations to the appropriate companies. I haven't spoken to your friends at all, though I understand they've been having some interesting conversations with each other. And as for the divorce, I'm simply asking for what's legally mine." "What's legally yours?" She laughed bitterly. "You want to take credit for everything I built?" This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the portable speaker I'd brought for my booth presentation. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced to the growing crowd. My wife would like to set the record straight about our relationship. I think it's only fair that you hear her own words on the subject. I pressed play, and Lydia's voice filled the air, crystal clear and utterly damning. Silas is such a pushover. He actually thanked me for helping him see how toxic his college friends were. The crowd murmured, but I wasn't done. The recording continued with Bianca's voice. Don't feel bad, Lydia. He's just a placeholder until you figure out what you really want. And then Lydia again. I know, right? It's almost too easy. He has no idea about Roman. The festival had gone completely silent, except for the damning words pouring from the speaker. Lydia's face had gone from pale to green as she realized what was happening. The best part, her recorded voice continued, is that he's so trusting. I could probably convince him that black is white if I tried hard enough. I stopped the recording and looked at my wife with something that might have been pity. Would you like to hear more? I have hours of material. Your friends were very thorough in documenting their contempt for me. Lydia looked around desperately at the crowd of neighbors, acquaintances, and strangers who had just heard her true feelings about the man she'd promised to love and honor. The phones were still recording, capturing every moment of her humiliation for posterity. That was taken out of context, she stammered. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I interrupted. You and your friends systematically destroyed my reputation, my friendships, and my trust. You planned to abandon our marriage while taking everything I'd worked for. You had an affair with a married man and called it love. I gestured to the art pieces surrounding us. Do you know what this is, Lydia? This is my real work. Not the dusty old junk you always dismissed, but genuine pieces of history that I've brought back to life. Each one was damaged, neglected, written off as worthless, but with patience and skill, I restored them to their original beauty. I picked up a small Renaissance painting that had been my most challenging project. This piece was so damaged when I got it that other restorers said it was beyond saving. The paint was flaking, the canvas was rotted, the varnish had turned everything brown and ugly. But underneath all that damage, the original masterpiece was still there, waiting to be revealed. I set the painting back down and looked directly at Lydia. The difference between this painting and our marriage is that this actually had something beautiful underneath all the damage. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Even Marnie had stopped filming, her phone hanging forgotten in her hand. You want to know what I learned from all this? I continued. Some things can't be restored. Some damage goes too deep, corrupts too much of the original structure. When that happens, the only honest thing to do is acknowledge that the piece is beyond saving. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. Lydia Morton, you've been served. The divorce papers are final, the asset division is complete, and Morton Media LLC has been dissolved. She took the envelope with shaking hands, her eyes filling with tears. Silas, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can't do anything, I said firmly. There is no we anymore. There hasn't been for months, apparently. I turned to address the crowd one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for witnessing this restoration. As you can see, sometimes the only way to reveal the truth is to strip away all the lies. I began packing up my booth, each movement deliberate and final. Jasper appeared at my side, helping me load the artwork into our van. Where will you go? Lydia asked quietly, her public persona finally cracking completely. Away, I said without looking back. Far away from here, from you, from all of this. What about the house? What about everything we built together? I paused in my packing and turned to face her one last time. The house is sold. The proceeds will be divided according to the prenup you insisted on signing. As for what we built together, I gestured around us, at the crowd of people who had just witnessed her complete humiliation, at the phone still recording her breakdown, at the ruins of the life she'd tried so hard to curate. "This is what we built together, Lydia. Enjoy it." I climbed into the van and nodded to Jasper. As we drove away from the festival, I could see Lydia standing alone in the middle of the crowd, clutching the divorce papers and crying. Marnie had disappeared entirely, probably already uploading the footage to every social media platform she could think of. Mrs. Evers was holding court with a group of neighbors, no doubt providing color commentary on everything they'd just witnessed. "Boss," Jasper said as we reached the highway, "that was either the most beautiful thing I've ever seen or the most terrifying." "Restoration is an art form," I replied, watching our old neighborhood disappear in the side mirror, "and I've always been very good at my job." My phone buzzed with notifications, friend requests, interview requests, messages from people who'd seen the videos that were already going viral. I turned it off and rolled down the window, letting the wind carry away the last remnants of my old life. Behind us, the festival continued, but I knew it would be remembered for only one thing: the day Silas Morton finally stopped being the underdog and became something else entirely. Something that didn't forgive, something that didn't forget, something that finished what others started. The restoration was complete. There was nothing left to save.